I'll be able to hang in there.
What was the injury?
My knee.
In my last video, I made the claim that the Green Bay Packers' 3 free agent signings this offseason were more than their 2 signings last year. D. Lee pointed out that they signed 4 free agents last offseason, so I decided to look more into it, and they in fact signed 6 outside free agents last year, and I want to review and analyze these signings a year later. Starting it off with Cameron Young. The Packers signed defensive lineman Cameron Young to a 1-year, $1 million deal with no guaranteed money on June 10th, and I don't even know who this is. And that's likely because he was drafted by the Seahawks in 2024 and only lasted about a month on the Packers, being released on July 18th. Green Bay also signed Christian Welch, a linebacker who predominantly played special teams. He was previously on the team in 2023 too. He signed a 1-year, $1.17 million contract with no guaranteed money on March 28th. Welch did not make the initial 53-man roster, but got signed to the practice squad right after. He was signed to the active roster on November 1st, but then waived on November 3rd and re-signed to the practice squad on November 4th, and then signed once again to the active roster on November 11th. He played in 8 total games, and Green Bay re-signed him this offseason to the league minimum, though they currently have 6 off-ball linebackers rostered, so we will see if he makes the 53-man roster later this year. The Packers signed linebacker Isaiah Simmons to a 1-year deal worth $1.3 million with $167,000 in guaranteed money on April 29th. He also did not make the 53-man roster. The former top 10 pick is an athletic freak, but ultimately he just wasn't good enough to make the team. The final player that the Packers signed to a 1-year deal last offseason was Mecole Hardman, with the deal worth $1.5 million and $150,000 guaranteed. The wide receiver and possible return man was signed on March 20th, but he too did not make the 53-man roster, though he was signed to the practice squad. He was later released on September 23rd after not being called up for any of the Packers' first 3 games. It sounded like Mecole had a good training camp and preseason at wide receiver, but not so much as a return man, so they decided to move on. So of the 4 extremely low-cost signings, 0 made the initial active roster, and only 1 played in a game for the Packers. Obviously, there aren't high expectations for these guys, so I'm not going to complain about these misses. I can't imagine the hit rate for essentially league minimum players is all that high. The sum of these 4 contracts was just over $5 million, but the Packers handed out just over $130 million total in contracts last year, with the top 2 guys accounting for over 96% of that money. The first of which is Nate Hobbs, who signed a 4-year, $48 million contract on March 13th. The Packers had a thin cornerback room coming off the 2024 season, so it made sense to address the position in free agency. Hobbs was coming off multiple seasons as a starter for the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was primarily a slot corner that excelled in the run game. He even received an 80.1 overall grade from PFF his rookie year in 2021. However, the 2 years that followed, he received grades of 60.9 and 69. Nate Hobbs also had a shaky injury history. In the 3 years prior to joining the Packers, he missed 6 games, 4 games, and 6 games again in those 3 seasons. Despite these facts, the Packers handed him a 4-year deal with the goal of him playing as an outside corner. However, before getting to see that in action, he suffered an injury in the preseason, causing him to miss Week 1. He was able to come back Week 2 and increased his snap count over the next 4 games. After playing 76 snaps in Week 7, which was every single defensive snap, he only played 4 in Week 8, and didn't play more than 50% of snaps until Week 15. And there are 2 major reasons for this. First, he got benched because he was just simply not good. Hobbs allowed 17 catches on 25 targets for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. His passer rating allowed when targeted was 125.2. He finished the season with a 61.7 PFF grade, which ranked 60th of 114 cornerbacks. His coverage grade of 58.1 was ranked 75th. And the second reason for his limited playing time was injuries. As mentioned before, he got hurt before the season, causing him to miss the opener. He got hurt again in Week 9, forcing him out the next 4 games. And he got hurt a 3rd time in Week 17, putting him out for the rest of the season. With all of this added up, the Packers decided to move on, designating him as a post-June 1 release on March 11th to free up $9 million for the 2026 season after June 1st. This move forces the Packers to eat $8 million in dead cap in 2027, a complete failure of a free agent signing and a failure at improving the cornerback position. The final free agent that the Packers signed last offseason was offensive lineman Aaron Banks. Banks previously played 4 seasons with the 49ers, having a starting job in the most recent 3. He did not grade well in those seasons according to PFF, being graded in the 50s for the first 3 years and 65.4 in 2024. Like Hobbs, Banks also previously dealt with injuries. He missed 7 games across the previous 3 seasons, with 4 missed games coming in 2024. Again, despite these facts, the Packers gave him a 4-year, $77 million contract to become the team's starting left guard, sliding former Pro Bowler Elgton Jenkins to center. And Banks was not good either. He missed 2 games and was not healthy for most of the year, finishing with a PFF grade of 53.0, which was the 66th best among 81 guards. Not good. He was never an elite player, but the Packers decided to make him one of the highest paid guards in the league. And I'm not saying Elgton Jenkins would have been back to his Pro Bowl caliber at guard, but the combination of the Banks signing and the Jenkins move was a complete miss. And now, Jenkins is off the team due to Banks' large contract, and he just signed for $12 million per year with the Browns. The Packers had the opportunity to move on from Banks, like Hobbs, and it would free up about $4 million in cap space for this upcoming season. Instead, they restructured his deal, creating some cap space, but also significantly increasing his dead cap hit next year. So the Packers and Banks are basically locked in for the next 2 seasons. The optimism is that if he remains healthy, he should play better, but it's exactly that, being optimistic. He's dealt with injuries throughout his entire career, so why should we expect that to stop now? The Green Bay Packers were a play away from the NFC Championship game in the 2023 season and followed it up by signing Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. Things were trending way up in the new Jordan Love era. However, the Packers never won a big game in 2024 and ended the regular season losing 3 of their final 5 games, and ultimately went one and done in the playoffs, only scoring 10 points on offense. In response, Brian Gutekunst signed 2 players that were never really that good and had concerning injury histories. And to no one's surprise, these players did not perform well in 2025 while also dealing with injuries. A complete failure of the 2025 free agency cycle. I was expecting a 2025 season that was similar to 2024, being good enough but not great. Fortunately, Gutekunst made the biggest move of his career, trading for Micah Parsons, which completely changed my outlook of the season. But this is a video about last year's free agency, not the entire offseason. And again, I am arguing that the 2025 Packers free agency class was a total miss and a complete failure. Now, for the next 2 years, the Packers must navigate these failures by retaining an underperforming player and eating dead cap money. I am hoping the 2026 free agency class turns out better than last year's.